of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course Mmpc 017 Advanced Strategic Management for MBA program. Presenting Block 3 International Strategy, Unit 6 Internationalization Process, Part 2.
Models of international trade. Models of international trade have brought to the fore many diverse dimensions comprising of international environment and the firm which acts as conglomerates that portray various conditions and situations. Internationalization is a reflection of extraordinary diversification of a firm and is systematically revealed and presented by researchers with the help of various models. These models depict the main components and mechanism of international activities firms should take at a moment. Frank Bradley, 1995, suggested that main model of internationalization depends on product life cycle, foreign direct investment, and transaction costs. Sorensen classified international trade as follows: progressive models, product life cycle model Uppsala, contingency models REM, the transaction cost model, the eclectic model, interactive models, business network models. Uppsala model is one of the most popular model. Wendt Hollinson 2004, Rubaiva 2010 mentioned that transaction cost model, international business network model, and globalization models are more scientific and also dealt with two more additional models, that is REM and eclectic models. Life cycle model of international trade 1966. Vernon 1966 introduced product life cycle model of international trade. This model highlights that internationalization is closely related with the product life cycle. Producers in developed countries are closer to markets than producers from other developing countries, resulting in the initiation of production facilities to begin in developed countries. Increase in demand leads to mass production, allowing economies of scale and decrease in cost of production. Life cycle theory suggests a stage division of internationalization process of a firm as mentioned below. The stage of the new product, stage of the mature product, stage of the standardized product. International Product Life Cycle Model IPLC is intended to advance trade theory beyond David Ricardo's static framework of comparative advantage. Author in this model came up with an experiment of simple economic benefits to any country engaged in international trade, even if the firm is able to produce all products at lowest possible cost, does not appear to have any need to enter into international trade. Vernon focuses on the dynamics of comparative advantage in trade and drew inspiration from the product life cycle to explain the change in trade patterns over time. Through this model, the author presented that international trade is advantageous for a country which specialize in product categories with highest added value and are capable of producing such products at low cost and allow its workforce to specialize. According to this model, a local manufacturer in a developed country starts by selling a new technologically advanced product to high-income group consumers in its home country market. To start with, the firm wants to reduce risk and uncertainty by targeting local consumers. As demand for the product starts increasing from the consumers in other markets, the production capacity is increasingly shifted to foreign countries, enabling the firm to maximize production and get the advantage of economies of scale and bypass trade barriers. As the product reaches the maturity stage, the competition increases and it becomes more of a commodity. Towards the end, the innovator of the developed country becomes challenged in its own home market and makes the developed nation, which actually developed the product, a net importer of the product. This product is then produced by competitors in lesser developed countries, or if the innovator has developed into a MNC, it may get manufactured in its foreign-based production facility. International trade cycle consists of three stages. First, new product. A firm in a developed country wants to exploit a technological breakthrough by launching a new innovative product in its home country market. Usually, new products are expensive because of the nature of innovativeness and cost involved in creating such a technological innovation. This can only be afforded by high income consumers and take the risk of spending on a newly developed expensive product, low price elasticity. Developed countries provide easier access to capital markets, enabling the firm to invest in developing innovative new products. The production started locally also minimizes the risk and uncertainty. At this stage of the cycle, export to other countries may occur that allows the innovators to increase revenue and to increase the downward descent of the product's experience curve. Consumers in advanced countries with similar desires and incomes make export easy, and it is the first step in internationalization effort. Second, mature product. At this stage, the product is exported to markets in other advanced countries, further increases through time, making it economically possible and politically necessary to start local production. Design of the product and process at this stage becomes increasingly stable. FDI in production reduces the unit cost of production because of the reduction in labor and transport cost. Offshore production facilities are meant to serve local markets and substitute exports from the home market. Production at this stage also requires highly skilled and high salaried employees. In non-domestic advanced countries, local firms enter and increase competition and export orders starts coming from lower income countries. Third, standardized product. During this phase of the product life cycle, principal markets become stagnated and the innovator's competitive advantage based on functional benefits gets eroded. The firm starts to focus on the reduction of cost of production instead of adding new features of the product. As a result, the product and production process becomes increasingly standardized, resulting in further economies of scale and increases the mobility of manufacturing operations. At this stage, labor is replaced by capital, there is optimum utilization of factors of production, and economies of scale is fully utilized. The principal difference between two locations now is only the cost of labor. In order to counter price-related competition and barriers of trade, or just to meet local demand, production facilities are now relocated to countries with lower incomes and lower cost of production, so that they can be cost effective and produced at lower price to meet the requirement of people living in countries with lower incomes. Local competitors like previously in advanced countries will get access to first-hand information and can start to produce a similar copy of the product and sell. The demand for the original product now dwindles in the domestic country because of the arrival of new technologies and other established markets, which becomes highly price sensitive. The market which is left and not covered gets shared between competitors who predominantly are international. A MNC will internally maximize offshore production to countries which has low cost of labor. As a result, the domestic market and will have to import relatively capital-intensive products from low-income countries. The machines that operate these plants remain in the country where the technology was first invented. In a nutshell, it can be concluded that at this stage, which is the third stage of life cycle model, firms explore new market opportunities when the product reaches maturity and decline, and thus the firms move to new countries and new markets. At this stage of life cycle, firms relocate their production facility to developing countries and from their sources it to the counties based on the demand. Transition from one stage to other stage of the product life cycle offers two advantages that are knowledge and cost reduction. Developing and developed countries clearly explain these gaps and portray the difference in cost of production. Firms emerging from developed countries use licensing, subcontracting, franchising, and acquiring in the countries with cost differentials and provide cost advantages. In a nutshell, transferring production to developing countries helps the firm in reducing the cost of production. For example, X firm is now producing all its products in China and sourcing it to every part of the world based on the demand. Uppsala Internationalization Model 1977. Johansson and Wedersheim Paul 1975. Johansson and Valny 1977 from Uppsala University in Sweden developed a model of internationalization named Uppsala Internationalization Model, which focused on the process of internationalization. In their research, study authors studied some of the manufacturing firms in Sweden and developed a model of the firm's choice of market. Researchers studied the patterns in the various internationalization process and noted the following. Most of the firms started their international operations from the nearby market and neighboring countries. Exporting is the initial mode of entry. Organizations are not found to be entering into foreign markets with sales organizations and manufacturing subsidiaries of their own. After several years of exports to the same markets, organizations invest in wholly owned or majority owned operations. Johansson and Wedersheim Paul 1975 stated the difference between four different modes of entering into international market and successive stages that represent higher degree of market commitment and international involvement. Stage 1, sporadic export, irregular exporting. Stage 2, export modes, exports through independent representatives. Stage 3, establishment of foreign sales subsidiaries. Stage 4, in this stage the firm enters into a foreign market through production and manufacturing units. Evidence from case studies conducted in 4 Swedish firms indicate that internationalization develops gradually. The sequence of stages was confined to specific country market. Market commitment according to this model comprises of 2 factors. First, amount of resources committed, operationalized or amount of investment in the market through investment in marketing, organization and personnel. Second, degree of commitment, difficulty of finding an alternative use of resources and transferring them to the alternative use. International business needs knowledge of the specific business and market which can be gained through experience and higher degree of involvement. Operational efficiency in these markets can be gained through experience in the business and can be transferred from one country to another country. Operational efficiency can be gained through experience and can be transferred from one country to another country. Direct relationship between market knowledge and commitment is found to exist. Key features of Uppsala theory are: knowledge is initially gained in the home market before moving to the international markets. Initial overseas operation in the organization is started from geographically, culturally, and religiously close nations and slowly is expanded towards diverse nations and faraway countries. Most of the organizations initiate internationalization by making use of export facility, which is less risky when compared to investment models, and then slowly, when they find themselves successful in the export venture, operational modes like sales subsidiaries and manufacturing facilities are started. Investing in manufacturing facilities in all markets is an objective of the firm but takes considerable amount of time to start with. Market commitments are made in small incremental steps, selecting geographic markets convenient to explore with narrow psychic distance in combination with choosing entry modes with less additional risks. Contingency models. REM is a 3-factor model comprising of stages of decision making in a firm. R is equals to reason for internationalization, business environment factors, that is internal and external environment factors. E is equals to conducive environment factor. M is equals to mode of entry. Transaction theory. Coase 1937 developed a theory which is the foundation of the transaction cost analysis TCA model. The theory behind this model takes the cost as an important component in decision making. Author argued that a firm will tend to expand until the cost of organizing an extra transaction within a firm will become equal to the cost of carrying out the same transaction in the open market. This predicts that a firm will perform internally all those activities it can undertake at a lower cost through a system of efficient internal management control systems, while the same firm relies on independent outsiders like intermediaries, agents, or distributors for a low-cost advantage. Transaction costs emerge in situations when markets fail to operate under perfect competition friction-free. The cost of operating in perfect completion market results in zero transaction cost, and there would be little or no incentive to impose any impediments to free exchange and trade. However, in reality, there is always some friction between buyer and the seller, resulting in transaction cost. The friction between buyer and seller is explained by opportunistic behavior. The Transaction Cost Analysis (TCA) framework states that cost minimization explains structural decisions. Firms internalize, that is, integrate vertically to reduce transaction costs. Transaction cost is further divided into different types of cost related to transactional relationship between the buyer and the seller. The equation presented below provides the description of the cost elements in the TCA equation. Transaction cost is equals to ex ante cost, search cost plus contracting cost plus ex post cost, which is monitoring cost plus enforcement cost. TCA theory is built on the assumption that the firm internationalizes until the transaction cost in the firm balances with the cost of the same transaction, based on the Market Holland-Cent 2008. Transaction cost evaluates the divergent interest and opportunistic behavior of exporters' decision about internationalization and is taken after proper analysis of the transaction cost. The result of the analysis state that if the cost of transaction in the foreign market is lesser than the cost of the firm when they are only operating internally, the firm will opt for internationalization and will try to have business relationship with foreign partners like licensing, exports, subcontracting, and joint ventures. The key features of the transaction cost theory are: it primarily focuses on cost incurred by a firm and its effect on the firm's market choice and modes of entry to international business. It believes organization structure as a single important arrangement for establishing and safeguarding transactions and reducing its cost between nation across national boundaries of the firm. Transaction cost covers all the cost of enforcement, that is, information search about a product and foreign market buyers, producers, and sellers, and negotiation costs across boundaries and monitoring. Now, the eclectic model. Eclectic model developed by Dunning complains conditions appropriate for internationalization of the firm, like foreign direct investment (FDI) and not through exports. This model proposes the suitability of conditions for FDI. The author gave a three-factor theory, that is OLI, to explain the suitability of the firm to enter through FDI. The abbreviation of OLI given and explained below. O is ownership advantages, L is location advantage, I is internationalization advantage. Ownership advantages. O explains the ownership advantage in this model and talks about the benefits of ownership. The firm is expected to have advantages of ownership when compared to other firms in various foreign markets. These advantages could be factors of production like resources and technical assets of the firm. Ownership advantages could be found in two groups as asset advantages and transaction advantages. Asset advantages include product innovations, property rights, employees' experience, organizational and marketing system, production management, know-how, and others. The transaction advantages may result from economies of scale, supply of mixed resources, capacity utilization of better resources, availability of inputs and resources of mother firm at marginal cost. These advantages provide greater opportunities and benefits following the shifting of manufacturing process abroad. Location advantage L. It is a factor in the market that explains immobility of the characteristics at international level. Location advantage emerge as an outcome of the economic gap between countries which benefits the host country for foreign direct investment. Resources for location advantages are because of certain input factors based on price, quality, and efficiency of materials, resources, labor, and energy. Outputs depending on real conditions of the market infrastructures, which is airports and communications, legal, educational, business environment, and psychic distance resulting in proximity, which is language, culture, and business acumen, structure due to economic system, government policies, investment incentives, resources, allocation, and institutional framework. Internationalization advantage I. Internationalization advantage is a transaction attribute which emerge as an ownership advantage and become private property when they are transferred outside the firm. Firm prefers to capitalize its ownership advantage by investing and minimizing the transaction cost of inter-firm's knowledge and competency transfer. Process of the investment evolution is the main element of eclectic model. This model depends on 5 stages of development process as first, pre-industrial stage lacks FDI, small investment attraction only exists, and the internal advantages of the national firms are not enough for input and output of the direct investment. Domestic market depends on low incomes, absence of necessary infrastructure and authority, along with lack of economic and political stability, resulting in less advantages. Second, the second stage is linked to the first one because the role of the government in attracting FDI is dismal. Legal systems and business infrastructure is created at this stage to create a favorable investment environment. The flows of FDI intensify and the focus is particularly in industries with resources, production industries with intensive labor in sales, distribution, transport, and construction. Third, middle stage has to replace cheap foreign investment as main vehicle as a result of the fact that location advantage is an outcome of that created in the second stage. Fourth, the last 2 stages in the investment outputs develop as the firm attains a certain degree of maturity. The foreign firms intend to use O advantages to get new assets in the market, 0 advantages to get new assets in the market. Interactive models. The interactive models believe that market is formed from a set of anonymous actors interacting continuously to have long-term business relationships, resulting in long-term business network. The model of business network of the firm is a major incentive of internationalization of the firm, which produces resources interacting with their partners. The firm networking for the business can be individually independent and dependent on the resources controlled by the firms. Increase in the degree of dependence means that the firm is more dependent on the resources of other firms for the benefit of all parties. According to this model, business network works throughout exchange relationships. The position of the firm inside a network is a key concept of the network model. Following 3 strategies allow a firm to internationalize. Extension when the firm has relationships with firms and networks in new markets. Penetration if the firm intends to deepen its relationships as a part of existing international networks. Coordination by improving existing relationships inside various networks in different markets. Summary. International trade theories intend to explain motives of the firm for trade and the benefits of international trade. Different models highlight different important factors of international business. Uppsala model focused on the process of internationalization, while the life cycle model of international trade is a model based on the stages of the product life cycle and identifies the suitability time for a firm to internationalize. This model insists that maturity stage is the right time to internationalize as market for the product gets stagnated and it's the right time to look for new opportunities. TCA model is more from the cost perspective of internationalization and OLI model highlights the conditions of internationalization. Each model discussed in this unit is unique in its own way and helps a student in understanding the typical scenario in which a firm tends to explore international market.
You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code Mmpc 016 International Business Management. Course Coordinator Professor G. Subayama. Voiceover by Chitra. Edited by Ashok Sharma. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan and Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.